half dozen people have been fired for the use of secret waitlists or other manipulated scheduling practices, which could have, and in some cases actually did lead to the deaths of veterans. So what's the problem here? Why aren't things getting better, and why isn't anybody being held accountable? First and foremost, the current VA Secretary, Bob McDonald, is fundamentally unserious about reforming and fixing the VA or holding bad VA employees accountable. Some of you are probably wondering why I have this picture up here with me. This is a picture of Secretary McDonald standing with a woman named Kim Graves, who is currently the director of VA Benefits Center in St. Paul, Minnesota. About 6 months ago, she was found guilty with another VA executive by the VA Inspector General named Diane Rubens to defrauded the VA's relocation program of nearly $400,000. The VA Inspector General considered this conduct so egregious, they actually referred criminal charges to the Department of Justice. So what did the VA do with Ms. Graves? First, they refused to fire her. I don't know about any of you, but if most of you defrauded your company or your news station of even $400, you'd probably be fired. But they called it an error in judgment. The Deputy VA Secretary called it an error in judgment, not misconduct, despite what their own Inspector General found. This wasn't Congress, this wasn't an outside group, this is their own Inspector General found this. Then they tried to demote and transfer her. Actually, here to the Benefits Center down the street, down Central. But the VA bungled that case, and the Merit Service Protection Board threw out that demotion. So at the end of the day, what happened? Ms. Graves was not forced to repay the money that her and Ms. Rubens defrauded from the federal government, was not demoted, allowed to keep her current job, and kept her six-figure salary with only a 10% cut. And then to top it all off, Secretary McDonald flies to Minnesota, does a press conference, and stands right next to her and talks about how great the VA's been doing. Why did he do that? Secretary McDonald's been very clear he is not serious about holding bad VA employees accountable. He's all but said it. He said that people focus too much on firing people and you know, getting people that were involved in some of these secret wait lists. He has been overly defensive of the VA bureaucracy, and through his actions and words has demonstrated that he is not serious about introducing more accountability in the VA system. But most of all, it was really about one other thing, and that was giving a giant middle finger to all the veterans, all the whistleblowers, and all of you in the press who helped expose the scandal, expose the wrongdoing, expose the culture of corruption within the Department of Veterans Affairs. It was a big middle finger to all of us, whether you're in a veteran organization, whether you're in the press, whether you're a whistleblower like Brandon. He was saying to all of us that he is not serious about fixing or reforming the VA. Top of that, you have the United States Senate. Last summer, the House of Representatives passed the VA Accountability Act on a bipartisan vote. VA Accountability Act is a bill that would make it easier to fire bad VA employees, increases protections for VA whistleblowers like Brandon here. It was supported by almost every major veteran group, including the American Legion, Veterans of Foreign Wars, Paralyzed Veterans of America, Iraq and Afghanistan Vets of America, and Concerned Veterans for America. It passed the House on a bipartisan vote, including with the majority of Arizona's congressional delegation. You had people as diverse as Kirsten Sinema voting for it, and Matt Salmon on the other end of the political spectrum voting for it. So what happens after that? It goes to the United States Senate. So far, Republican Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has refused to bring this common sense piece of legislation up for a vote. Even worse, the head of the Senate VA committee, Senator Isaacson from Georgia, is refusing to work with the House VA committee that originally crafted this piece of legislation to make sure it's advanced in the Senate and included in an omnibus bill that Senator Isaacson is currently crafting. That omnibus bill, by the way, is shaping up to be a piece of garbage that will include a bunch of feel-good half measures that will not fundamentally fix the problems of the VA that are still prevalent today. The Senate has no excuse not to move the VA Accountability Act. It is a common sense, bipartisan piece of legislation. There is no excuse. Yet instead, they appear to be working to advance a watered-down omnibus bill full of feel-good half measures that are frankly only going to sound good on the campaign trail, but not actually fix any of the problems that are still inflicting the VA today and still hurting veterans. Finally, and I think worst of all, you now have a group of people who we at CVA have started to call the VA truthers. Like the 9/11 truthers who believe the 9/11 attacks were a government conspiracy, you have VA truthers who now believe that the VA scandal was overblown, exaggerated, or even a conspiracy concocted by Republicans and the Koch brothers. It's absurd. The VA truthers sadly include people like Secretary Hillary Clinton, who last October called the VA scandal not as widespread as it was made out to be, Bernie Sanders, who was, at the time the scandal broke, the head of the Senate VA committee, who implied it was a right-wing conspiracy at the time, and now, sadly, many so-called journalists at publications like the Washington Monthly, The Nation, and Mother Jones, and the New Yorker magazine, who have completely misrepresented what was uncovered during the scandal and have flat-out lied about reforms being proposed by groups like CVA. Just yesterday, you had the New Yorker magazine, a writer for that magazine, say that we need some VA scandal revisionism. Again, that is another middle finger to you and the press and veterans organizations that helped expose this scandal, and it is disgusting. So why are they doing this? Why are they saying this? At the end of the day, it's to protect the status quo. You know, you've seen bipartisan efforts develop in Congress. You have people like Kirsten Sinema here in Arizona working with people like Matt Salmon to come up with bipartisan solutions to fix the problems at the Department of Veterans Affairs. It shouldn't be a left or right issue. But sadly, there are those that have for years touted the VA as an example of how government-run healthcare can work for all of us. So now the VA is under attack, and it's shown that the government-run healthcare system of the VA isn't working as many have said that it should work for years. Their response has been to attack, lie, and become more entrenched and more defensive of the status quo. And that does nobody any good, especially the veterans that are forced to rely on the VA hospitals. Sadly, now you have many major veteran organizations, including many that stood with us here 2 years ago and demanded change at the VA and called out the VA. Many of them now are actually starting to echo some of the language of the VA truthers. Some of them are even disseminating some of these articles that are being written that are flat out false and actually contradict what those organizations were saying 2 years ago. Sadly includes organizations like the American Legion, a group that I used to be a proud member of. So why are they joining in? Well, first of all, it's not your average American Legion post out here in Phoenix or in Scottsdale. Their members don't believe in that. Their members want reform because many of their members have to use this VA hospital. It's their national leadership in Washington, D.C. that are driving this. And why are they driving this? Because they want to preserve their access. They want to preserve their tickets to the White House Easter egg roll, their lunches with the secretary every week, and their yearly meeting in the Oval Office. They don't want to upset the apple cart. And when they are seen to do that, they get cut off. And at the end of the day, sadly, that's what many of those people that run those organizations in Washington, D.C. care about. Access and not improving the well-being of many of their members. And it's absolutely disgusting. So those are really your three dynamics of why we at CVA feel that these problems have not been resolved within the Department of Veterans Affairs, especially the healthcare system. But despite all these obstacles, we're confident that we can still reform and fix the Department of Veterans Affairs. Overwhelmingly, veterans support reforming and fixing the VA. Overwhelmingly, they support introducing more accountability for bad VA employees. They support more healthcare choice so a veteran can take their VA benefits into the private sector if they so choose, or they can continue to use a VA hospital they like or love. And to be clear, Many veterans do, yes, like VA care. But that's the key thing, is once they get in and they like it, they, for the most part, are fine. And that's not universal. But the problem is there's hundreds of thousands of veterans across the country that still can't access VA care. And that is unacceptable. And that harms their well-being, especially when they've already been found to be ineligible. When they need the care, it's been established they need the care, they can't access it, it hurts them, and likely in many cases can lead to their deaths in a premature manner. So that gives us hope. And with veterans speaking out more through groups like CVA and others, we hope that we can affect change and advance real reforms. And we're confident that many in Congress and many who work within the Department of Veterans Affairs will hopefully soon work with us all to advance those common sense reforms like the VA Accountability Act, like deeper reforms to the VA healthcare system, which Concerned Veterans for America has proposed through our Fixing Veterans Healthcare Task Force. And we hope that the VA truthers and others that have been trying to minimize this or trying to say that it's a concocted scandal, that it's some conspiracy, that their voices will be ignored, and that the people that know that this problem needs to be fixed, their voices will prevail at the end of the day, and we'll get real change within the Department of Veterans Affairs, because quite frankly, our veterans cannot wait another 2 years for this broken system to be repaired. With that, I want to hand it over to Brandon Coleman. Like I said, Brandon's a whistleblower. He's a fellow Marine. Brandon has now 2 sons who are actually Marines, and one day they might be forced to rely on the VA system, and I hope for all of us that they won't have to go through many of the things that Brandon's had to go through and other veterans that have experienced across the country, not just here in Phoenix. So Brandon, thank you for coming out.
Thank you to Concerned Veterans for America for the platform today. Just a little background on me. I'm one of the whistleblowers here. I'm an addiction therapist at the VA hospital that's behind you. I'm an employee in good standing. I came forward because I saw Secretary McDonald on 60 Minutes on November 9th of 2014, in which he swore to the 60 Minutes reporter that whistleblowers would be protected if they bring forth wrongdoing. I brought forth wrongdoing that suicidal veterans were eloping freely from the Phoenix VA hospital. Also, as a disabled veteran of the United States Marine Corps that got my medical care here, employees were going through my medical records, my HIPAA-protected medical records. Administrators were. It's been proven to this point that up to 4 different employees that weren't involved in my medical treatment have done so. And I called wrongdoing. I filed a complaint with the Office of Special Counsel. Didn't get any help from my supervisors. The first supervisor I went to in December of 2014 told me her exact words, "That's exactly how people get fired," is what I was told. I had no choice but to go to the press. I went to the media. And a local station ran back-to-back stories January 12th and 13th of 2015. The day after that, the then director of the hospital, Glenn Grippen, held a secret meeting in which he proposed to fire me. This is all documented through testimony from the HR chief, Lori Butler, at the time, who was in the meeting. He proposed to fire me for being a whistleblower. It's against federal law. It's against the 1989 Federal Whistleblower Protection Act. He was told by legal counsel, "We can't fire Brandon because he's protected, but we can come up with adverse employee actions." A week later, I was accused of threatening a coworker. I've had 3 exceptional reviews year after year. I was selected for one of 3 employees out of 3,600 for a pretty distinct training program because of my abilities. Developed a 52-week program for veterans convicted of alcohol and drug-related felonies involved with the veterans courts. Loved my job. There's no place I'd rather work than at the VA helping veterans get clean and sober. It's what I was put on the planet professionally to do. After Grippen brought this allegation up, I was walked out on January 27th of 2015. I cried in that parking lot over there. I had no idea what to do. The only person I had on my side at that time was the Office of Special Counsel, and I reached out to the attorney and I cried on the phone with an attorney. And I still laugh about it to this day because I wouldn't cry anymore, learning what I've learned over the last 16 months. But I did. I didn't know what to do. And shortly after that, Concerned Veterans for America called me, and they sent out a camera crew, and they started to tell my story, and that's how it begun. And many of you here in the press I've done many interviews with. I've done over 400 interviews in the last 16 months. I've never said no to any media outlet. I don't care if it's the most liberal group or the most conservative group. I'm trying to get the message out. So moving forward, I met one-on-one with Secretary McDonald. I was also told the day that I was taken out of my job that I had to have a police escort if I wanted to seek care as a veteran. Again, folks, I had never done anything wrong. I'd never once raised my voice in 7 years of federal employment. But I was told I had to have a police escort if I wanted to get care as a disabled vet. Met one-on-one with the secretary, and I said, "Sir," and he said, "Don't call me sir, call me Bob." I said, "Bob, we have a problem. I'm sitting 5 feet away from the most powerful man in the VA." And I said, "You feel perfectly safe, correct?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "You feel perfectly safe. However, as a disabled Marine Corps vet, if I go to get care at my hospital, I have to have a police escort. There's something wrong with that." And he said, "I agree with you." A week later, the order to have a police escort was removed. However, they've never apologized. Fast forward a little bit, reports have come out. The Office of Special Counsel asked the VA to investigate itself. They've admitted that 10 suicidal veterans, at least 10, have eloped from this facility. I was right. From day one, I told the truth. They've admitted that my records have been rifled through by 3 different employees. Again, I've committed no crime other than I pointed out that suicidal vets were eloping. I have been home on paid administrative leave since January 27th of 2015. They've made me 2 crappy reinstatement offers. Nothing having to do anything near with what I was doing before. The VA paid for me to go to college. They paid for my bachelor's and my master's degree to help veterans get clean and sober. Again, folks, no place I'd rather work than at this hospital right here, helping vets dig veterans out of the dirt. I testified before the United States Senate regarding whistleblower retaliation. I've received much help from politicians here. I'd like to personally thank Kirsten Sinema. I'd like to personally thank John McCain for his help. I haven't got much help from many of the other ones other than they all signed a letter for me at one time. But I testified before the United States Senate, and I thought at that time it would be over. That was September of 2015. Still on leave. What is it? 8 months later, still home. So like I said, my fellow whistleblowers are brave. This isn't really about us as much today as it is. My big issue is the suicidal veterans, the veterans that have committed suicide, the names that have been shown throughout the Phoenix media. I'd like to give a special thanks to Ashley Berry. I've worked with many reporters over the past 16 months, but she is the most hard-hitting reporter I've ever seen, and she has called these people on their crap like no one else. Dennis Wagner's also done a great job, and he's written on me several times. I know that the director today, what's neat about Change is I know the director is meeting with some of these media types today, doing sit-down interviews, and that's so cool because it's about time. She's leading this hospital. She's in a position of authority to where she needs to speak to the media. If these people back here would just speak to the media, it would get better. If they would just let you guys know what's going on instead of having to listen to whistleblowers like me scream at the top of my lungs, over and over again. Brings me forward to probably my final point is about the Veterans Choice Act. The Veterans Choice Act was, signed into legislation to give us choice. Again, folks, I'm a disabled Marine Corps veteran. I hear veterans all the time say that they love their VA health care. That is awesome. Keep getting your VA health care. That is so cool. No one's telling you not to do it. However, I don't like my VA health care. I've been screwed over more times than I can imagine. I have 9 pins in my foot from 9 surgeries from a foot that I hurt while on active duty in the Marine Corps. Not a big fan of VA health care myself. I earn the right to be able to go to a private provider if I want to. If I'm made to wait 60, 90, 120 days, I come down here on a day off or something to do an appointment and it gets canceled. It happens all the time. It's not about privatizing the VA. I'm the first to defend the VA when it comes to research. The VA is one of the leading researchers in the world when it comes to Hep C, to HIV, to war-related injuries, loss of limbs. They do some amazing work. There's some amazing people here doing some amazing work. However, where the VA falls short is in primary care. We're not good at helping the average veteran with the average common cold. There's too many vets in order to do that. So why shouldn't I be able to go to my private doctor in Scottsdale, where my doctor's at, and have him see me? I think it's a way to help better the VA, and that's why I've been such a strong proponent. I hold my hands. I showed this on Fox and Friends yesterday, live on TV, and then I did an interview with Ashley Berry. It's the latest Choice Act information from this hospital right behind me. It's as of Tuesday, April 5th, I believe, showing that 1,627 veterans that are eligible for choice with a wait time, an average wait time of 59 days. It's supposed to be 30 days, folks. 59 days, that's twice as long, right? And there's some on there that are 120. I think one was 147, and the times go up and up from there, that aren't getting choice. That's one hospital. How many hospitals are there across the country? 110, I think it is. 110 times 1,600. That's just what we know about here because of brave whistleblowers that have brought this information forward to show you that the Choice Act, they're trying to destroy the Choice Act before it even gets started. They're sending veterans to collections. They're not paying doctors that are approving the use of the Choice Act and the payments. They're doing everything they can to make sure that it doesn't work. My own union, I'm still a member of this union, although I disagree with a lot of their values, because I could care less about Democrats or Republicans. I care about veterans. And my union has made this a Democrat versus Republican issue, and they came out saying the Choice Act needed to be dismantled, and I lit up. I lit into them the other day for that, because the Choice Act needs to be given a chance to succeed. Let's see if it succeeds. And I think what the VA is scared of is that when the Choice Act does succeed, many veterans won't come back for health care. Or the VA can fix things, and if they fix things, then they'll continue to get funding for the health care. It's called competition. There's nothing wrong with that. It's the American way. And I am not for privatizing the VA. The VA is a great place for a lot of people. I feel safe at a VA hospital around other veterans. I like being around other vets, Marine Corps vets and other vets. So lastly, the last thing I'll say, and then I'll shut up. This isn't a Democrat or a Republican issue. This is an American issue. So this is our problem. I have two sons currently serving the United States Marine Corps. One is currently stationed in Kuwait, going in and out of Iraq. He's serving his country in the United States Marine Corps because of me, and me running my big mouth and how much I loved the Marine Corps when I was younger. So now as a dad, I get to be in fear every day. I wasn't in fear when I was 18 and got to go do my thing. However, as a 41-year-old, it scares the crap out of me that my sons are over there spending time. I have a daughter that's joining the Marine Corps this summer as well. I'll be the proud parent of 3 United States Marines at once. We owe it to them to fix this. Not saying they will need the VA for care, but if they ever need the VA for care, they sign that contract to keep each of us safe, just like each of us that served in the United States military did. It's a contract we signed with our government saying that if we needed care, if we needed to be dug out of the dirt, if we needed to be given a second chance, like I was, the VA paid to educate me. They helped me dig myself out of the dirt. They helped me get clean and sober. They helped me to be able to help veterans with the same issues. And I'm thankful that the VA was there for that. But if my children ever need that, that's something that the VA needs to be there for, and it needs to continue. That's why this needs to be fixed. I'm proud of Director Amdor if she's really meeting with media people today. It's about time. It's about time. We've been calling for it. If you want to lead this hospital, lead the hospital. Use whistleblowers. We know what's going on. We're not lying. So we have facts to back us up. Some of you probably get tired in the media because I send you guys so much stuff during the week. It never stops. I have people too afraid to talk. I call them sheeple. Too afraid to talk because they're afraid of losing their jobs, but they'll send me information. That's what it is, what's going on behind us, because people are so afraid that what happened to me is going to happen to them. It's got to end sometime. So thank you for coming out today. Thank you for CV4A for allowing me the time to speak. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Brandon. I know that some of you, we're going to be doing some individual interviews, but if there's any questions that you'd like to address, to us up here right now, be glad to answer them. No? Well, thank you all for coming out. If you need any follow-up information from us, Sarah, could you raise your hand in the back? If you could all, many of you have spoken to Sarah. She'd be glad to answer any follow-up inquiries, and we'll get you what you need. And thank you all again for coming out. And thank you for continuing to cover this. It's an important story, as Brandon said, and there needs to be a light continually shown on the problems at the facility behind us and across the country, because if the minute you guys stop covering it is the minute that the problem goes away and the problems are not solved. So thank you all for coming out again, and for the 5th time, if you need anything else from us, just let us know. Thank you.
All right, everybody, now we're going to take you back out to Hillary Clinton live in Buffalo, New York.